Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome back to another episode of Naked Sunday. I am your host, Caleb Nelson, and I have got my new friend, Mr. Ken Martz, on the show with me today. Ken, thank you for joining me on the show today.
Glad to be here. Looking forward to the conversation.
Likewise, brother. And if you've listened to any of the episodes, you would know that I like to start all my episodes with why I appreciate my guest. And he helped me refresh like how we got connected a second ago. And I was like, oh yeah, that explains everything because everything. So we were connected by our mutual friend Rob Scott. He's also been on the podcast. Shout out to you, Rob. Um, I'm a big believer in you're the average of the five people you spend most time with. But in general, like the people that have been connected to me, for somebody to be thinking about us being a good connection, it means that we share the same values. You're just a good human. We had a great conversation, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, something like that. And I really value when somebody just like, we moved right past this surface level fluff and right into the real, because what else are we doing here in this world if we're not actually getting to know each other on a meaningful level? Sometimes we got to small talk stuff. I get that. Man, I really appreciate when somebody's willing to just be in it, be themselves, talk about the real things, and develop a meaningful, authentic relationship. So thank you for being you, brother.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Glad to do it. And this is such work as a psychologist and working with emotions. I mean, you've got to talk about the real stuff, the authentic stuff, because otherwise you're not going to get anywhere, and it's fine to do some superficial stuff at a party or for a Saturday night for a few minutes, but that's not what's going to feed our heart and feed our soul, so really need to get a little bit beyond that into the honest stuff.
I 1,000% agree. I, that being said, I have also come to appreciation lately of sometimes it's like sometimes you do need to keep it light. Somebody like you and myself, like if we love going deep, I've realized like sometimes I also gotta just like that surface, like light laughter and just like because self work, internal work, I can get pretty heavy. So I especially recently been doing a bunch of game nights with friends and we do some of those like raunchy hard games and whatnot, and like wild charade and all kind of it. I love that. But
Mhm.
I feel like those things in it are like enhancing that depth, not the other way around. Not like I need this to like kind of gloss over all the meaning and depth in my life to be able to walk both paths. I feel like really enriches your life.
Yeah. It's one of the things I talk about all the time. It's like the Goldilocks effect. You really need a little bit of all of it. And much like a recipe, it bakes together a little richer with the diverse range, which includes the play, which includes the passion, which includes the sorrows, which includes the hopes, which includes the fear. It's a complex combination to build out, and it's just much richer together, which is not stuck in any one of them, which is not easy sometimes. So,
Not at all, especially like in the beginning when somebody's starting to open up on that journey. You and I both know it's sometimes a little bit like pulling teeth, getting people just, it's okay, be a little vulnerable. Maybe just love on you. It's all going to be good. But
yeah,
rightfully so, people are trying to have a little bit of trepidation kind of taking that
right.
first step. But man, it makes both sides of the spectrum way more enjoyable when you can tap in.
Absolutely. I, that's often one of the first meetings I often spend with folks is talking a little bit about some of the uh, rules that I have, shall we say. Not, and you'll catch on if you hadn't already that I'm not that big of a rules person. But start off with the rules of, for example, that I might tell some jokes once in a while. It doesn't mean I'm not taking it seriously, but, it's that sometimes it's just a little bit easier with a little bit of levity, a little bit of balance to lighten it out. And also always there's a sense of willingness there that, even if we push a little deeper into something, it's okay to say, hey, can we slow down a little bit? Can we slow down just a little bit? Can I take some time on that one rather than jumping straight into the deep end of the pool? So every spot, and we may be at different spots in different issues. So when talking about feelings, fear kind of hits us one way, but grief may hit us another way. And if I get too stuck in one or running away from one or the other, life gets very off center, And so having that trust that we can work at your pace, it's all in the context of a relationship with good people. Kind of like you said at the start, it's all about the building of a relationship and finding a safe space where we can kind of be honest and real, because nothing else happens without that. So,
That needs like little mic drop, like sound effect kind of thing go on with that one there. I was until we're real, nothing can happen. Like there we go. I want to keep rolling with this, but before we go too far off into a different deep end, let's make sure that the world knows who you are. So Ken, you know yourself better than I. Share with us, who are you?
gotcha. So I am a licensed psychologist. I've been in practice for 30 years. I'm also a author of I lost count how many books at this point. 6 or 8, depending on how you count with the translations and all that. Um, I also teach yoga and for 20 years or so now, and love the work. Got a lot of time in my private practice. I've taught for a number of years, so brings some really diverse experience and energy to the world there. There's been a specialty for years with addiction, which and it's such a critical need these days. But in my private practice, most of my time is really spent specializing on men with anxiety, because as guys, we often tend not be as forthright or we're as aware sometimes. So there's sometimes a willingness issue, sometimes it's a awareness issue. Sometimes there's I don't know how the heck to deal with that. I know what to do in the business world, but not on the personal side. So wide range of background there to kind of play with. My most common book is Manage My Emotions, but there's a few others working with counselors and how to help other counselors develop those skills as well. So, with the wide range there, that's one of the reasons I got started with this is that it started with exactly this issue of there was an old I'm going to quote, but the old Henry David Thoreau quote actually I got a picture of Walden Pond up in our living room that I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to put to rout all that was not life, and not when I came to die discover that I had not lived. And so really starting to think a little bit about what the heck does it mean to have meaning in my life and in the lives of those that I work with on a day-to-day basis. The superficial is fine for a bit, but to have an option, a range for that depth as well. And in my work, sometimes that's about values, sometimes that's about emotion, because the feelings are about the fuel that drives everything that we do in life. Why are we doing this work every day? Why are we doing various things? Because I care, because those are my values aligned with my motivation and what brings me joy, and oftentimes that ends up happening in the context of relationships. There's certainly things I can do alone on a given day, but very often it's about ways in which these become authentic in relationships. So kind of packaging up a range there.
Oh, it was great. And what was really sticking out to me, especially you're talking about men with anxiety and they're in their professional life. What I kept hearing there is the two dichotomies. We talked about humor and depth, like sorrow and the joy.
Yeah.
The personal, the professional, but they're all part of the same thing. Like it is life. And you were doing a great job describing it. A lot of this is about throttling it within the range that is appropriate for you. And I think something I'd love to lean into here, especially I know the audience tends to be very heavy in their masculine. Many of the audience members or the listeners are women with businesses or executive, whatever, but they tend to be very heavy in that masculine. It's like professional, very career oriented. And so many people I've noticed, and not to say men don't listen to this either, all of that. But like what I find is that there's this real deep hardening of into this masculine, this so structured, this number driven, the like that kind of clinical place, and often a fear associated with now opening this door for personal, not realizing some of the benefits that will come from this, we'll call it perceived softening. And that's I'd love to like just hear a little bit of your take. And like I think that's an inherent fear. Like if I'm gonna open up this trap door of emotion, then all of a sudden maybe I'm gonna lose my edge professionally, or if I create balance in my life, all of a sudden, like all this prosperity I have in my professional life, I'm gonna make less money. I'm not gonna be able to hold it all together. I'd love to just hear some of your take and what you've witnessed around that.
Sure. So I can go back to my Goldilocks principle. It really works better with a little bit of both. And I may or may not have both of them out front at a given moment. It's like, but it's like, as a professional, it's all about goals and what's my action steps and my quarterly plan and the steps for today and the bottom line numbers of what's growing or not growing in the portfolio, which is important. But the world changes. So you need both a vision as well as a ability to be soft and move. There's an old saying that there's no hurricane that can break a blade of glass, a blade of grass, because it can bend. Where the direction that you're growing, but you have to be able to adjust as it shows up. It's like we had a whole field, a whole industry, a whole world that was going down a business path in one direction, and then a world event hits, such as COVID, and suddenly we have to adapt very rapidly. And so those who can't adapt, and along with those clear values, will struggle. So it's a little bit of both, and that's one of the benefits that bringing that emotional side, and I don't mean just kind of the excess of emotion either. It's how to find that balance where I have a heart, and a direction. And very often when I think through, as we were saying, 5 of my closest friends, one of the things that I think of very often is this balance of vision and direction and well-heartedness. So you can have a strong business leader who's a jerk, and may not be somebody you're going to follow forever. Okay. And at the same time, someone who is too soft and emotional, I've worked with folks like this too. They end up falling because they give it all away. So it's like how to find that balance of a bit of clear, a bit of boundaries, as well as a bit of flexibility to say, you know what? All right, I can manage this with that. So, or my rates are this, but I offer a 1 pro bono slot or 2 pro bono slots, or this is, so there's a range of things there and ways that you can manage that, so, and that was also some of the reasons when I started up in writing, because I've only got 2 hands and I love doing clinical work, but I can't reach everybody. And so by reducing some things to writing, that really helps to be a little more flexible with my roles and be able to reach further people. So really need a little bit of that, both sides of it, to be both strong and directed. Actually, sometimes I don't need to actually like that or agree everything of the person that I'm with their vision. Some of my best friends, we've disagreed on a number of things. We've had long debates about which one of us is right. But it's catch the playfulness that goes along with it of, it's okay because I respect the differences of opinion as we help to grow each other. So it works well together, actually.
Well, as you're saying that, hold on, today's gonna be a damn quote. What I don't know who said it, but the full quote of a jack of all trades, but a master of none is still often better than a master at one, something along those lines.
Mm, mm, mm,
And what I was hearing in that, when somebody can round out themselves and they can tap into this other side, the emotional side, which was, and correct me if I'm hearing it incorrectly, that the core values and direction comes from tapping into that emotional side that is because you're being driven a little more by purpose, not a little bit, but you cultivate a purpose, an impact that is beyond just money. Not to say that money's bad, but now the money has a purpose, whether it's to do a charitable thing or to provide for family, name your thing. It makes the, again, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like by exploring that, the system of you as the leader becomes far more robust. It's more sturdy. It's able to, as you said, the hurricane will not break you because you're that flexible blade of grass within the storm. I which I think that was a very beautiful illustration of that. Though it seems, I think we also think we are much bigger and more important than we are when the world can fly through, and all of a sudden we witness that, like you said, with the pandemic.
yeah.
We're a blade of grass, man, and a whole bigger system of systems. So if you're not able to bend, you're going to go down with it. I think that was something that really jumped out to me in what you're explaining there.
Yeah. And when I deal with the emotions, for example, it's that same kind of Goldilocks element. So just picking on fear for a second. If I had zero fear, I'm about to die. I'm going to go get hit by a car. I'm going to go, don't have any fear is there to protect us from danger. Now, if I had too much fear, I'm about to die. I'm going to stay inside the house and not be able to get any food. So it's when in balance, each of the emotions are much stronger. In this case, the balance of fear is what we call courage. It's not that I'm not afraid of things in life, but I have the strength, the conviction, the values to kind of pull me forward, despite that fears in the background. And the same is true with all of the core emotions, that there's a balance there, that when I've got courage, when I've got drive, when I've got passion, when I've got compassion, when I've got respect, that emotional balance brings a depth to leadership. Leadership says, here's the vision. I'm going to be the best, this and this and this in life, which is awesome. I can get behind that. But it catches me from the head, not from the heart. And so it becomes a little more three-dimensional as we round our strengths, as we round our purpose and drive, and find ways to communicate that. Sometimes in words, sometimes saying, this is my vision and this is the why. Sometimes mission statements get a little bit generic, but, really getting something in there that captures a little bit of the meat behind it, so that stays rounded. Good.
That one really resonated with me. I think a lot of people we're supposed to have a vision and a mission statement. No, no, I understand the depth of the value of this, because if this is not a singular, this is not a singular venture. This requires the cooperation, the collaboration of many. But where do you see the resistance for people spending the time, energy, often money, and resistance on exploring that, of truly cultivating something that you're like, I'm going to put my flag down on this and I'm going forward with it. Where does the resistance seem to be with that?
So simplifying a little bit, I usually think about it in kind of three different spots. One of which is uh, one is awareness. You know, first off, I'm not aware that I'm scared. I'm just so busy running, or I'm not aware about the depths of my depression. I'm so busy racing through, that I didn't realize that I was miserable. You know, and so the first challenge is usually that I don't even know what I don't know. Now, that's a starting point. But once I identify one of the challenges that I've got, the next issue is, what do I do with it? All right, I'm scared. Now what do I do with that? I didn't want to tell you that I'm scared, but now that I did, now what? It's kind of like jumping in the pool and it's like, all right, now catch me. It's like, this is why I'm not going to say it, because I'm afraid to acknowledge it and not have a solution. I want solutions to everything. And so that's where in my practice, I really focus on a kind of toolbox approach. It's like, look, I got 30 years of stuff collected here. Here's a tool. And if that doesn't work, we'll go to the next tool. We'll go to the next tool until we find the one that works for you. So first, identify what the challenge is. Then we'll put up a package of tools to make sure that changes for you specifically. And the third thing is maintenance. It's like a colleague of mine used to say that, this is not a one walk dog. You don't take the dog for a walk once and then it's done for the rest of your life. It's like, no, I need to go practice this stuff and maintain these things that I've learned. It's not like, be honest with my spouse for 30 seconds and then go back to ignoring each other. It's about, how do I begin to practice authenticity and then put it into practice and continue and make that the norm. And so that's one of the things I mentioned addictions work. Addictions work is kind of like, I get stuck in doing a bad habit, and I'm not minimizing it by that. Of course, there's much more to it than that. But the point that I'm making here is that in the maintenance process, that's our work. How do I get into the good habit of facing my fears rather than running from them? Very often in life, we are habitually connected to our work and our directions, to our, running 50 directions with the family. But can we make a habit of, no, I take care of myself in the mix? I want to give to everybody, but do I give to myself also and maintain a pattern of refilling my tank? Because else I'm not going to have it to give. So those are kind of ongoing things that I don't just stop and think about myself for a minute and then go back to, back to the ozone again. It's like, go get real and then continue on in life.
You hit the nail on the head. You really drew me in with that maintenance one. This is not a one walk dog. Oh my God. That's going to be one of the teasers, brother. That was so good. And I'm going to say it this way, especially in my fitness background. You don't have a weight loss problem. You have a weight maintenance problem.
Yeah.
And that, I'm so happy you brought it up, because it's the integration. And I think that's where people don't understand that, yeah, you did it once, but now you have to apply that skill or that habit or that routine through all these different areas of your life, whether it's, I'm going to use nutrition right now. You have to eat your certain amount of protein. Well, you got to do it in the spring, and then you have to do it in the summer, and you have to do it in the fall, and you have to do it in the winter, and you have to do it through holidays, and you have to do it through vacations, and you have to do it through tragedies, and you have to do it through back to school, all the stuff, with each one of those things bringing a different relational challenge, with bringing a different ebb and flow of the year. And that's, and the times and the preferences and the tastes and the uniqueness of all that is such an integration. So I was so important to hear you say that. I use a nutrition example, of course, but the dog example lands so well. Like, how are you going to keep doing that? And that's where the hard work is. And I love that you brought it up because so many people are like, well, I'm going to do this 12-week challenge or whatever it is. And don't get me wrong, I've run plenty of them.
Hmm.
It is the opening of the door to a relationship. I also don't think it, I grew up, maybe I did tell you I grew up in a cult and I was supposed to have an arranged marriage. So kind of one of my running jokes is don't propose on the first date. Um, but we're not going for a year long thing or part of 3, 5, 7 year long thing. Maybe a transformation might take a year, but what it logically, this is going to be something that you just jumped on and jumped off, jumped on and jumped off, whatever it is. But maybe talking business, health, relationships. I thought it was just the way you illustrated that. So take me again. The awareness is the first problem. Then the solution. Do I know what the solution? And then the maintenance. Those were the three big key pieces there.
Yeah. Yeah. Have to know what it is, how to change it, and then how to maintain it. It really is, that's the structure, that's the process that happens across the way, right? Whether that's about fear, whether that's about nutrition, whether it's about the partnership with a loved one, whether it's, whatever the life changes are that happen. So if a family member passes away, there's still changes that happen with that. And how do I become aware of what I'm feeling, navigate the range of emotions that just happened there, and take the blessings of that relationship and let go of the rest and carry forward in a certain way. So it's how to keep moving with, life as it continues to evolve on us. That's not exactly, but that's very much my meditation book is designed. It's one of my favorite tools. It's designed on day 1 through 7. It's designed on, I've never done this before, give you breadcrumbs, shall we say, get you started, make it easy and acceptable. And meditation, aside from being a evidence-based tool, it's really good for stress management. It's also really good for that awareness piece. So it's designed to also help not only calm down, but make a safe space where you can wake up and start to feel stuff and think stuff. In the queue, meditation book 2 is about how to make that as a practice. How do I make it consistent? So exactly this issue that it's not just learning a tool, it's learning a tool and then knowing when to use it, how to use it consistently. Exactly back to the diet or fitness routine. I don't just go for a diet for a week and then say, okay, I fixed that. I'm going to continue on. I'm going to do what's healthy eating and healthy eating for a lifetime, and what's healthy fitness. And one of the ways I sometimes play with that, just to make it more complicated, is work with folks all the time with a life balance wheel. And so nothing magical about the wheel, nothing that every spoke of the wheel needs to be perfectly aligned, perfectly even. But it's a nice way, I even say quarterly, kind of pull it out and kind of walk through in each of these areas of my life. Am I at where I want to be? So, for example, finances, business time, social things such as friends, such as relationship with myself, such as relationship with my partner, such as relationship with my family, such as relationship with the community, health, such as physical health, diet, sleeping right, etc. My values, my mission, you see how quickly, as I go around the circle a bit off the top of my head, I may get centered here, but then 3 months from now, I forgot about sleeping right because I stayed up a little late, I had a little extra coffee, had a little, and get a little off center. So that maintenance, in business, that's part of why we have, annual or quarterly goals, some period of time, am I still focusing on the things that I need to do to keep my life in order consistently? Or some new problem came up, and so I stopped doing this one. And so I want to call that one back in. So, you know, awareness, knowing what to do, but then multiple tools to stay consistent and really make habits for long term, habits for life.
I think what you said there was valuable, comparing it or seeing the benefits of what a business does. And I think a lot of business owners, when they do start to tap into this personal development, life coachy, life wheel, whatever word we want to call it, um, they start to see that, oh, I just am applying the same skill set, but maybe I need to question my beliefs. Maybe I need to question and to do that, I need to see what I need to unpack my emotional stuff, all those other things. And you said that there, and I think that so many people can learn from having to run a business, which I don't think a lot of people who are an employee in many places. I'm not going to say that as a but broad strokes. Most people that are waiting on somebody else's timetable and their other time scale, I notice some analogous behaviors in their personal life. Kind of they're waiting for somebody else to step in and solve their problems, but somebody who's in a leadership role often can see, wow, this structure around checking in and mostly being reminded to do the basic stuff you just mentioned right there. 3 months down the line, when I go back and I check, oops, I forgot, sleep is off. Yeah, I got to start sleeping better again. It's always stupid, simple fundamentals. And you remind me of a quote. I don't know who said it, but maybe 7 years ago, somebody says, more often than not, we don't need to be taught anything new. We just need to be reminded. That's it. Like, it's once we got the basics down, the hard part is just continuing to do the basics, because everybody gets distracted with the new shiny thing. But the basics, so long as you do it, it's going to take you very far. And ultimately, what is truly mastery? You can apply those basics in infinite contexts, but you have not experienced infinity. So what a great, I really appreciated that illustration of how you just bringing that to the forefront. I think so many people don't see the value in, like, why not treat your household like a business? Because where are you going as an individual? Where are you going as a family? Like, well, those are important questions to be asking yourself if you want to have a full and meaningful life. Well, let me change that. My opinion. So, everybody take that with a grain of salt, but I wouldn't be surprised most people still listening to this little element here would probably agree. Yeah.
And just like I said about the wheel, there may be one or two that are not as much a priority to you at this stage or at that, so an 18-year-old doesn't necessarily care the same thing about some elements as a 50-year-old, as an 80-year-old. But to a greater or lesser degree, kind of like that baking a cake thing again, these are the basic elements. And whether it's at work or at home, I need to be aware of what's working right or not at home. I need to know how to fix it when something breaks at home, whether it's in the household or in a relationship. And I need to know how to maintain that continuing on in my personal life. So, it's a wide range there that we keep balancing. And the same thing at the office. I may need to know a little bit about emotionally where our relationships are at. Do my coworkers hate me? Do my coworkers like me? Are my coworkers scared of me? And when I notice that, is that where I want it to be at? And if not, how do I change that a little bit? And how do I find relationships that are supportive? Because very often we spend a lot of time dealing with the breakdowns in life, in the various relationships. And I can strive much faster in business when I'm not going it alone. Either because I know how to work my team that's in my business or outside of the business, or because, I know how to recognize it and shift when I need to. I need to be able to grow with my business as the emotions get off center and then get them back on point. So.
As you're talking about this, the first thing that it comes up often in my brain, but I think about what's called sustainable health. You're speaking a lot from the emotional side, which is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it's probably the most challenging and unsexy thing to sell to somebody. Here's this long-term sustainable well-being that you're going to experience. What this came up because you're like, well, people are just they wait till the problems happen, and then all of a sudden, like the world's on fire. What's going on there? I know it's frustrating. But I'd love to hear from somebody else's perspective, because you eventually realize that investing in the earlier on is probably the good thing to do. I'd love to see what you've seen with that. Like, there's so much resistance to that.
Yeah. There's I'm going to veer for 1 second, but come back to that. There's a saying, which is likely true, although I haven't double checked the research on it, that the number one way to become a millionaire in this country is not because my father was rich, or not because I won the lottery. The number one way to become rich is because I took a small portion of my check and put it away into savings, put it away into retirement. So simple things, persisting over time. So I often say it's like, if I go to the top of the mountain and it's all covered in snow, and I take a pebble and I drop it down the side of the mountain, it will roll down and snowball and become a huge snowball that will, flatten what gets in front of it. And such that the snowball eventually by the bottom of the mountain is going to be so huge, it's much harder to turn. You won't maybe not be able to turn it. But if I start early on at the top of the mountain, I can just move a half an inch. It's super easy, and I can go down a completely different path. So to your point, 95% of our lives we spend on autopilot. And so if I'm on autopilot going in the right direction, that's going to snowball to the good, and it will look like life's turned out for me. But it all starts from some of those earlier decisions. The earlier we get aware and earlier we make those subtle changes, the easier it is. Conversely, when I've gotten off on the wrong track, I tend to just keep going in that wrong direction. I keep going in that not eating, not exercising, not pick a habit, because I maybe didn't know about it, or didn't know how to do that, or didn't know how to do it. And I thought that exercising meant only this, rather than understanding the range of different ways to get out there and play. So very often we're in that ozone, just unaware of, or unbelieving that life could be different. And so then all of a sudden I've got a decade later, and, oh, now I got to deal with this. So just for an example, young adults often think we're invincible, and so I don't have to think about, my body breaking down, or my body. Oh, that's something that happens to those people over there. So now all of a sudden I start a habit of not paying attention or putting effort into that. Whereas that's exactly the time the millionaires started, just a little bit, and persisting all the way through early on into life. These are about life habits, not just a one-walk dog. You could do this still later on, but it's always much easier the earlier and earlier I recognize it and start. A little tiny bit of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Not that we don't do a lot of curing out there. Our medical system is designed for it. Our medical system really is not a preventive healthcare system. So we wait until things get really bad before we go get some help. But a little ounce of prevention, really makes a world of difference.
Great analogy with the rolling down the hill, about going the right direction, the wrong direction, and it really does pick up steam. I'm closing in on my 40s now, and I'm what 15, 16 years removed from college, and I can see now the people who took care of their health, they look different. A lot of them, they don't look that different. You know, everybody ages a little bit, but like you can see the people who really didn't take care of themselves. And I'm saying this for anybody who is listening. Like we are where we are now, and maybe you lost a little bit behind, and that's fine. But I think what you're speaking to here is if you can really look forward into the next decade, the next 15, 20, maybe even 30 years. I mean, when you're, as you said before, when you're a young adult, you're in your 20s, who's thinking past 30? Rarely anyone, if any. If we think we're invincible, I'm going to live forever. I'll get to it then.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to get to the 30 mark, and if I'm far enough away from college, where else am I looking? And that's when you start looking to the abyss. And you're like, well, how long do I want to live for? And what are the chances I have? But much so like you're saying, like start now, and that small little snowball effect will take care of you. Just overcome that inertia in the beginning. Man, it makes a big, 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 big difference. Just a small little bit, they do stack up. Granted, we all want it yesterday. We want to be like, give me the 30-second hack that's gonna solve all my problems for everything and the magic pill. And you're absolutely right about the healthcare system. It is not set up for prevent. If anything, almost rewards you
Totally.
for just destroying yourself and hoping that somebody will just catch you on the back end. Like it's a very strange reward system.
Yeah, absolutely. If we were really focused on designing that a little differently, there's ways to really make sure that, the gyms are affordable, that healthy food is affordable. It's like, what's the most accessible food? That which is often the cheapest, which, again, how do we balance these things so that some of the barriers that get in the way don't stay in the way? How do we balance so that we have accessibility to time to spend on relationships? As we, in some areas of the country work our 40, 50, 60-hour work week, the more I do that, the more I'm cutting away time from other areas of my life that I really need. Some other cultures will have summers off. I'm not just talking about teachers, or these things there's apparently these things called vacations out there, where people take off from work and like they go play. And they even have these things during the day. They call them like breaks. And a lot of folks I've known through the years won't even take breaks during the day. It's like I'm eating my sandwich while I'm at the office and while I'm still at my desk. And, the one set of folks that I know that often do take those breaks actually are cigarette smokers, for example. I got to stand up. I got to go and I got to get out of the building and take my couple minute smoke break. So sometimes our quote unquote negative habits become tools to get us what we needed. Whereas I could just take a break, get my mind refreshed, be more effective, make fewer mistakes, be more productive at my workplace without having to do the smoking to get it.
That's
do it the right way.
Yeah. You know what? I think it was Japan. I can't remember where some countries rewarding or maybe some companies specifically, they're giving back time to those who didn't take smoke breaks as they're non-smokers. I thought that was a genius move. It's like all of a sudden, well, maybe which that could be a double-edged sword. Like maybe they'll altogether stop taking breaks, which is not the point here. I get where you're saying you're piggybacking that. What was the other thing you said in there that I really enjoyed? Oh, flip my mind now. Oh, that resonates. So my mother is French. I used to go there for a month every year until I was like 16. And to your point, some cultures in France, half the country takes off half like one of the months of the summer and the other half takes off the other month. It is wild. And just
Yeah.
this block of shops will just shut down. And guess what? People figure it out. And it is all good. Like
Wow.
somehow we function, somehow we live. And I think if we travel more, we can see that there's a lot of different ways that we could live and borrow some of those ideas. There's not just one way, the only way, and that's it. Like there's a lot of things, little tools we could integrate, and maybe it might even be better than what we currently think. Not to say that so many of the things we're doing aren't good. It's just, how can we integrate some of these benefits to live a more full and richer life? So I love that you brought that out.
Yeah. And there's a lot of different ways to do that than what we're all in our little habitual cultural view. But to your point, I did a year of study in Belgium, one of the best years of my life. And but one of the things that was completely different there as compared to our system. So, for example, I was in class for a very, very tiny bit of time. No tests, no quizzes. If you didn't show up, they didn't count anything. They didn't, not participation grade, So if we wanted to go and take the day off and go get a trip down to Italy for a week, we could do that. The downside was there was one final exam. It was oral. So you needed to know your stuff. I don't care how you get it, but you need to go and do the work. So it really puts the onus on us to be self-motivated and really do the work personally, because you can't hide in that oral final. But also gave that freedom to travel, to learn, and they also had a separate system, which was not only did they have the failing B, A, they also had double A and triple A. So also what the instructor would be inferring is, not only did you learn the content of this course, but you understood the content well enough to apply it to this other area in life. You understood this business concept and you were able to apply it in your personal life as well, or related it to Socrates and Plato's forums or something. So how these things are really taking it to the next level. So there's another way to motivate folks to really move beyond. By the way, at least at the time, school was about, so there was no financial barrier either. However, it was so personally motivated that half the students would flunk out. So removing the barriers, incentivizing folks to grow, worked really well in a lot of ways. For those that were not motivated or not ready, they could come back to school another day. But you got to get that personal motivation to balance it. So the different systems have different models, but, being able to think outside the box sometimes, where we started this conversation, often as a business, we have a singular direction. Can we see outside into different perspectives as well, making it more rounded?
What I really liked about what you shared there is about putting the responsibility also on self-awareness. Do you know yourself enough to guide your own education? And with that, I think you're bringing up an interesting point here, is that you can't force somebody to do the work, but you can reward them for taking responsibility. And I thought that it was really cool. So my buddy is doing, he's degree hacking basically right now. And he's doing it all partially as just ironically studying to get like a mental health licensure or something like that. And he talked a lot about competency-based learning. So I think what you just shared there is really cool, because ultimately the idea of school is to learn the stuff and then be able to apply it and use it, which that's great. And if all you need to do is show up and take a test, but you know how to do that because you are aware of yourself and you can guide some, well, what else is life? At some point, you have to take full ownership and responsibility yourself to be a functioning adult in society and to contribute back. So I thought that was really cool. incentive structures sound very interesting. Sure, that you're lowering the barrier, but at the same time, you also notice sometimes you have to pay the bill to realize, yeah, I care enough. Like that was part of my drive to say, hey, this is what I'm here for. There's a consequence if I don't pay for this and I don't show up and do some of those things. It's kind of it shows the individuality and shows also that we value different things. Like an exchange of energy looks different from every single person. And that's a, uh, wow. I was thinking about all that stuff and also made me think about like, how did you come to bring yoga into your practice or just kind of your global service of how you do things?
Well, I was originally doing Tai Chi. I was wanted a martial art. I wanted to one that was a little bit softer, a little bit more internally focused. And bluntly, my class just didn't. A couple of people dropped out, so it wasn't enough to progress. And so I looked around and said, "Where do I start?" And as it at the time I was single, and so one of my friends said, "You know what? Chicks dig yoga. You should go. You should go take a yoga class." Well, that didn't work out at all. I'll leave some of those stories on the side. But the class that I got into, had these range of young kids, older adults, et cetera, et cetera. So, but I got into yoga and I just loved it. And I really loved the diversity within it that had both the calm, it had the physical exercise, some strengthening, as well as some cardio. And you could play with those balances of the flexibility, cardio, and strength building to find the balance that works for me to maintain a little bit of that practice. And I got into it. I loved it, and I stayed. It kept me sane through school, ultimately, and it became one of those. When I find things that I like that are good balance for me, and that's my point. It's like I do enjoy lifting weights, but really you got to pick the one method or methods that you resonate with and are going to do consistently. Because if I don't enjoy it, I'm not going to do it. There's small tangents. When I was 8 years old, whatever it was, every other commercial, today every other commercial is a drug commercial telling you with the side effects. Back then it was a toothpaste commercial. And so every other commercial, Crest, most dentists recommend, and triple protection Aquafresh, and this one brightens your teeth better. And I went to my dentist. I said, I don't know what the heck, and I don't want to be here. I don't want to come back here. Which one should I use? Which one should I really use? Which one's right for me? So that I don't have to be, nice guy, but I didn't want to go to the dentist any more than I needed to. No cavities. And his answer actually surprised me. It wasn't what I was expecting. He said, choose the one that tastes the best. I said, huh? And yeah, choose the one that tastes the best. Because if it tastes like garbage, it doesn't matter how good it is clinically, you're not going to do it, and then you're going to get cavities. Choose the one that you're going to use. Okay? So much the same for the yoga. In my case, it's I still do some Tai Chi, I still do some other methods, but find the activity that works for you or works for you at a certain stage in your life. And so that became one of my ones that I then went on to grow and deepen my practice and become a teacher, so that when you do that, it also helps to anchor it. So I know I'm going to show up on, Monday night because that's when my class is, so that even on the days when you don't want to do something, then you've got some structure put into life, and I usually want to, but on the days when I don't want to, if I'm not feeling well, I've had moments where it was like, my back's hurting today. I don't know if I can do this. And all of a sudden I got onto the mat and it's like, oh, I move a little bit and all of a sudden I'm okay again. So putting the structure in all what we've been talking about, how do we put a structure in life so that my health, my business, my relationships, my world has a little bit of um, consistency to it in ways that will help. And yoga became one of those for me along the way.
What a great, you've got some of your references today being the dog, the toothpaste. Yeah, did you read Charles Duhigg's book on habits?
No, no.
The references, I'm 90% sure that I'm thinking about the right thing here, but he references why they put in like mint into toothpaste, like because it tastes good and they would use it more. Like, duh,
Right, right.
like,
Mm-hmm.
with all things, find the thing you like and you enjoy because it's easier to show up and do the thing and way better. Just you got to find your shade. In the beginning, it is a lot about trying a few different things. It's like, yeah, I'm not, and maybe you don't like every vegetable, but find your vegetables that work, find the fruits that work for you now in the context and the quantity and all the things. It's
Right.
way easier if you like it as opposed to, which I'm sure you see a lot of this, and we could definitely tap into it real quick. When most people have used like the application of force, like you're bad if you don't do this, you have to, you need to, you're like you suck if you don't. That
Mm-hmm.
it'll work in a short term, it'll get you, but you will resent
Mm-hmm.
not only the person who's doing it. The second you take away that,
Yeah.
the punishment or whatever, however that's going to be, all of a sudden, like, I'm going to go do whatever I want because I feel so pent up with pressure and resistance. Screw
Right.
it. I'm just going to go do whatever I want. I'm going to rebel real hard against this.
Right.
Close to the strategy you're talking about.
Absolutely. And it's like whether it's at work or at home, you know, that I have to, it breeds resentment. It breeds, and I'm gonna do it for this external purpose. And so as soon as the boss is no longer watching, I'm not going to do it. You know, and so the boss will then put in some monitors of some sort. I'm going to put in a metric, a key performance indicator to make sure that you did this many of this, sold this many of this widget, so that I don't have to watch you, but I'll still know. All of a sudden, I'm still going to start be looking for how do I wriggle around that, this thing that I don't want to do. As from the work perspective or home perspective, having a little motivation that's short term is fine, but ultimately, it's like, how do you connect it to that internal motivation so that I'm going to do the right thing when nobody's looking? You know, I may be scared of my boss. And so, all of a sudden I sit up a little straighter as soon as they walk in the door. But the reality of it is, it's much stronger when the boss creates an environment where I respect you. I want to be with you. I celebrate your wins. I'm looking to catch you doing the right thing. I'm looking to make you look good because all of a sudden now I'm motivated internally to do well rather than motivated out of fear. Fear is a excellent motivator. If I see a tiger, I will run away, or play dead or whatever you try to, fight or flight, or freeze. The On the other hand, though, fear is not great for a lot of things. It's great for that immediate emergency situation. We're not designed to live on that fear world all day long. And some people do. But actually, you know, some would say, and I would tend to agree, that love is a much more powerful motivator than fear. When I find what I care about and can get in touch with that center again, it's a lot easier to use that to pull me forward, to stay motivated even when nobody's looking, and really stay the course. It's not about the structures and the guardrails that we've talked about. Putting the structure in place, for long-term consistency are valuable, but the heart, this is the center of it, that I want to do the right thing. And that's why I put those guardrails in place. The guardrails are reminders in case I start to veer off a little bit, not the center of why I'm doing what I'm doing.
That is fantastic. I don't think enough people think about that. And I really
Yeah.
wish we would change. But obviously, that strategy worked back when everything was survival based. But
Mhm.
let's think about truly like most corporate American. Ironically, two of these things you brought up today have been very powerful. So going back to like taking rest
Mhm.
today, so at the time of this recording, one of my clients, she's like, crazy enough, I delegated everything out and I have a little extra space now. Like, I'm gonna go cuddle with my 2 year old and take a nap, which 3 weeks ago she would have just rolled her eyes at me. But I'm
Mhm.
like, you're gonna take a nap, and she's like, yeah, and I feel guilt free about it. I'm like, let's go, girl, which is phenomenal. But this specifically, this morning, same captain today, both of them, like, you know, prophetic, or maybe that's the wrong word, but whatever. Very timely. The other client, she she was telling me just about in her corporate environment, why am I so worked up? Why am I always living in fight or flight? Why do I have this like deep fear, guilt thing in something that's not actually a life or death situation? We're treating that like it is, but it's not. And if you're constantly living in that, then you're eventually going to go, I'm going to go find a better option because you realize there's plenty, there's plenty of abundance. There's plenty of other opportunities out there. So again, that short-term leadership, like very partially in the mask. And yes, we
Mhm.
need some order, as you said before. Some reminders like, hey kiddo, like stay back on the rail.
Yeah.
Man, that love approach. I think we're coming to a place where we're realizing that. Maybe we talked about this last on our first chat. You ever read the book Never Split the Difference?
No, no.
Love it. I can't recommend it enough. I can't wait till the day. I'd love to have Chris Both on. He's the author of it. Um, on here, but it's big. It's general tenet is tactical empathy. It's a lot about
Hmm.
using, like, putting people on the same side. It's definitely a different way
Mhm.
of speaking to people, and to your effect, that love to get that, like, to tap back into my internal motivations to be more grounded and at peace. You find people just like they chill out, they can, and ultimately they can more be themselves around you. And when they
Mhm.
are more themselves, they're sharing. There's more collaborate. Like, when you can tap into that sharing of information, all of a sudden, crazy, you probably have better options at your disposal, and you're probably going to create more financial success. It just takes a little more work in the beginning, and you got to be a little more patient to just work through that with people, and you have to have some tact about it. Like, you can't just be a bull on a china shop. You got to know how to talk to people. So everything you're talking about there, man, just nail on the head with the motivation. Plus, on a that kind of tongue in cheek thing, like, let's be real, a lot of dudes have done a lot of crazy things to chase after women. Like, the prospect of like, I love her so.
Mhm.
Wars have been fought over women. Let's put it that way. Like, motivate, we will,
Yeah.
travel
Yeah.
the seas and do all this other crazy
Hmm.
stuff to go find love.
Right.
But
Right.
eventually, you have a dictator over it. What do people do? They rebel. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
a crazy idea. It's not that crazy of an idea. It's just maybe the timeline's a little longer on certain things. So very relevant what you're saying. I think that was
Yeah.
fantastic. Fantastic.
And I think you're right on with the very often in the work world we end up in that fear-based mode, which, you know, when everything's a crisis, we just can't live our lives at that level constantly. And it's one of the old habits of effective people, finding where's that break time where I can schedule time that there's space for an emergency, but I don't live the whole day in emergency. Because if I'm doing that, the body does certain things when we're in front of a tiger that are protective of us in front of a tiger, but not for a 60-hour work week. We weren't designed to have the heart racing, muscles clenched, hyper focused, looking to the soul solution. You need some of those times to step back, breathe, sleep, you know, guilt free, and then also be able to brainstorm. The business example of that is having a quarterly or an annual retreat where we stop back and say, where are we as a team? What's working? that we want to keep, what's not working we want to let go of, and what's we're not doing that we need to add in to the program. Because when you're busy doing the day-to-day, you may not be able to have that broader vision. We need both that little bit of stress to keep moving, but also enough calm space to run and enjoy and support each other, and not be so tight in that. So, for example, sometimes we budget just to the number of people we need, but for a project. But somebody's gonna get sick, and somebody's gonna have a baby, and someone's gonna put in their resignation because they got something. So how do we plan for a little bit of space to adapt rather than cramming our lives with every inch of what we've got? Because we need all of that mix of the drive as well as the nap times. It's in some countries there's a design that in the middle of the day there might be a little bit of a nap time, which works in a whole lot of good ways. One of the programs I worked at was residential and for treatment, and lunchtime there was no sessions at lunchtime. The team came together and said, "What did you work on with this one this morning? What did you work on this one? I'll pick up on that in this afternoon." There's a collaborativeness that comes with, having that space to breathe in there. And if there was an emergency, something could get handled because nobody was in session at that time. So there's a lot of value in not always being on, fire engine mode, trying to put out a fire.
Oh my God, what's my ROI immediate on your time right now? That's
yeah.
cool, bro. Like, that's ridiculous. Like you're saying, I'm gonna schedule a retreat. What are you gonna get out of the retreat? I'm gonna get some space. That's what.
Yeah.
That's what. Like that. Well, the way you said, like stepping back, just even the way you did with your hand, because you can act with when you take away all the structures and the requirements of it having to be a thing, all of a sudden you can see the actual thing for what it truly is, and you can see the actual problem. But if you don't remove those barriers, you're always just through that very narrow lens, and you can't see what's really going on. And you might be like you doing more of what you're currently doing might actually be making the problem worse.
Yeah.
So what a great, again, on fire with your references and your metaphors today. This has been, wow.
It throws in another whole layer there too, where all of a sudden you're building community. People who were in the team who don't get to see each other, don't get to hang out ever, are all of a sudden hanging out and maybe playing a game, maybe doing a team building exercise, maybe actually tapping into their feedback because they know what's wrong because they're living it day to day, but that doesn't get communicated up the chain, for example. By creating spaces where these things can happen, this communication can happen, that the team can function. It's more than just me and my duties. Brings that focus back to the collective as well. So, again, that Goldilocks, finding a little bit of balance of the individualistic as well as the collectivistic view of all of the work to be done. And it's more fun that way too, because we're going to go back and we're going to see the friend that we just talked to, and all of a sudden I'm lighting back up again. I'm at work. Wait a minute, I'm lighting up having fun at work? Well, if you're not lighting up and having a little fun at work, are you in the right place or right career? Not that it's always going to be about playtime all the time, but there should be some moments somewhere that you enjoy. And if not, is it the right place? Is the right career? Or is there disconnect in yourself that I can't feel it when I'm there? If I'm numb, I may not be happy anywhere because I use the glasses example all the time. I don't really see the world. I see the world through my lenses that I've developed over the years. So sometimes it's about me as well to find my blind spots to help correct them and get back to authentic. So wide range there.
Damn, Ken, you're bringing the fire today. Like the let, the metaphors, all of it. I just, and I was just about to just like laugh with you. Like, fun? What's fun? Why you're allowed to have fun with work? Crazy thought.
Yeah.
Especially in this is the irony of competition. We have that. And people
Hmm.
want to tell competition, you got to go harder. Well, the other part of competition, somebody might actually enjoy a different work environment better because it's not as cutthroat, because it's not. And that place might actually get better talent who can think more big picture and longer term. And like that stuff exists because that's also part of the competitive narrative when you start thinking, and especially as you get older, when you have family, you have other responsibilities, start thinking about other aspects of your life where it's not just achievement driven or just only money driven. You start asking yourself about quality of time. That's a different ask that people really care about. And if you don't know how to speak to that, they're going to go look elsewhere. You might lose really tremendous, wise talent that,
Absolutely.
but not to mention somebody could just go start their own thing. They're like, I
Hmm.
can do this and get a few clients and be paid just as much with less headache. Like, that
Right.
sounds and way more enjoyable. I'll just cut out all the things I don't like and I'll find. And anybody who's thinking about just jumping ship, I will remind you entrepreneurship is wrought with challenges. So I'm not just saying jump ship. And every entrepreneur who's listening is like, yeah, we get it. There's the rocky road in and of itself. You know what I'm talking about. So
Yep. Yep.
you're just you're choosing the challenges that you want to have and something about ownership over your own future and your output as well.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. And
yeah.
and even to your example there about the drive at the office, which you can drive a horse really strong for a minute, but then all of a sudden people leave. You know, if you don't have that balance where people will stay connected to be able to do that and sustain that for forever, it doesn't work. Competition is again that short-term motivator, just like stress. But actually, I actually made it for a while without saying research. But you know, the research actually says that it's effective to have a balance there where it is, the fancy term is intergroup competition and intra-group cooperation, which, you know, so you've got two teams, which, you know, those two teams within my organization are working to see who gets better, but it's based on a collaboration of the team. It's a friendly competition, you know, rather than a cutthroat fight. You know, so that's a catch that balance again of I know what the KPI are, and we're both fighting to get our best work, but you get there by strengthening the team of each of those individual teams. You know, so there's a way to balance both the drive and the collaboration
Wow.
all at once.
I love it. I love it. I love that you're giving yourself a challenge to not say the research. That was hysterical. That was good. That was really good. You made it what
But
an hour and 20 minutes almost with that. So that's
I,
pretty impressive, brother. Pretty impressive.
well, it's either research or emotions. I one time got back in a session and a client says to me, you know, you were on TV. I saw you on TV last night. You didn't make it 5 minutes without saying feelings. I'm like, oh, you know, well, you know, it is what it is. You know, so you know,
Kind of the nature of the beast, man. So
exactly.
yeah,
The topic was on stress. You know, so I couldn't not.
yeah.
But
You got to
you know,
nail it. Got to hit the nail on the head with certain things. It is what it is.
yeah. So
Let's jump into our fun questions because I do want to be respectful of your time too.
sure.
So we got 3 questions. They're fun questions. There's a little depth. I'll share with you the stuff afterwards. Question number 1: what sports and or creative activities did you play when you were younger? And 1B, yeah, 1A, 1B. And how did you play them? Like, what was your style of play?
Mm. So when I was younger, there was a bit of range. I don't know how young you're looking for. Uh, Baseball and bowling were kind of the key. And it was within group cooperation, along with against the other team's competition. And, the more we could get together and support each other as a team was key.
Love that answer. And you'll see why. Because you basically took the words out of my mouth. Usually I kind of put the context together.
Mm-hmm.
But you just referenced how you look at things, on how do you get both individualistic kind of segments, but then together
Mm-hmm.
as a united goal. And I bring this question up because college I studied it and studied kinesiology, and one of the classes I took was on play. And one of them, they said, like, the way you play
Mm-hmm.
when you're younger is key indicators of how you go and approach things in life. Sometimes I've had people that are like, oh, I was the captain, and okay, I like just the leadership and things of that nature. But they're great way of thinking about how does both the individual and the collective come together to do things. Man, you must be reading my mind right now. Like, I love it. That was really, really good.
And yoga, since we talked about yoga before, real quick, very often that gets felt as an individual thing. I'm doing my practice of my depth and but I'm practicing either as a collective, or I'm practicing using some postures and structures that have been used for 1,000 years. So there's ways that you can still feel that collectiveness even when I'm doing my individualistic practice. So across different disciplines, you can still find that balance of both.
That was cool. Especially since a lot of yoga is thought about like the spiritual connection. How are we connected to something more than ourselves?
Yes.
The fire today, Ken, the fire that is coming out on this podcast is really good. With that, question number 2, you're stranded on a desert island. You get to bring one movie and one TV show. Those are the only things you get to watch for the rest of your life. So what is your desert island movie and desert island TV show, and why?
Mm. Um, so, oh my gosh. I've got to go. I'm gonna have to go with one of the Marvel movies, but can it be a series? I don't know. You
Sure.
know,
Why not? We're here. We're having fun.
I'd have to go with the Marvel series just because it kind of pulls, you know, um, a wide range of that whole hero story, and how to remember a bit of passion, a little bit of play, a little bit of work together, as well as um, overcoming the obstacles in life. It's that each one of them are really capture also the same issue of you have your individual hero, but then all of a sudden they, especially some of the later ones, they're working as a collective too. So there's a balance of the different strengths. Um, and TV show. I've got to probably go a little bit older here, just because you got to have a little bit of uh, was a lawyer movie, lawyer show. We watched for years and years, and then repeated it. And it was a comedy. Um, uh, it was a comedy as well as a balance of a bit of thinking. So it was. Uh, I'm blanking on it now. Legal. I forget it now.
Boston Legal? Was that what it was?
Boston Legal. Boston Legal.
Very good.
Yes, thank you.
Was Shatner in that one?
Yes, yes.
I know what you're talking about. They would like have a glass of scotch at the end of the night or something like that for their whole
Yeah,
yeah.
Got about 7 seasons in there, and I haven't watched it for a while now. We actually my wife and I would go through and actually watch through the series again once in a while. It's like it's got enough range to keep a little bit of play, a little bit of range out there, and a little fun.
Go figure. Your responses very easily lined up for why I asked that question, because I think the way we engage with entertainment, what we're looking for, especially the stories that we're looking to engage with, and if that was what we're always go back to. We talked a lot about fun, silliness, humor, like you talk about both those types of ranges within the depth of a show like that, and the hero's journey about seeing the collective. I mean, you took the words out of my mouth again. I thought that was really cool. So Marvel Avengers is really good, and I love those.
Yeah.
Really good. Really, really good. Which leads us to question number 3. What is your deathbed meal and who are you sharing it with and why?
Hmm. Uh, I gotta stick that one with my wife. And um, a meal. Um, I would start with just a nice steak. You know, it's like something that you kind of pulls together that richness of I'm enjoying the flavor. I'm enjoying the meal. Um, good balance of some veggies with it, but something that's going to have a richness of flavor to it, and it's a nice one for combining too because you've got and the why the because I enjoy the food, and I can think of nobody better to share that time with, and want those last precious moments with. So
Mm.
those relationships are central in our lives, and if not only again that structure but also the heart, and so great place to be.
We're like right here, right now, man. This is, I am in with you. Again, very on point with the thing. So I'll share with you why I asked this question. For one, and especially how you answered it, like you're sharing it with, like the family you created with
Mhm.
with your wife. I believe world peace is going to be solved one family dinner at a time. I really do. I think there's something very powerful when we share a meal together.
Mhm.
Our thoughts, our beliefs, the culture shows up on the plate. It's more than just food in front of us. So I think there's that. And who doesn't like a good steak? I mean, and again, your response about why a steak kept the concepts going. So it's staying very on brand, brother. But the other part to that, so I wrote a speech a couple of years ago for I officiated my youngest brother's wedding, and the speech I wrote was called "The Window and the Mirror." And then you've heard the quote, perhaps, "The eyes are the windows of the soul."
Mhm.
I go like, perhaps, but what if it also a mirror? And that being, especially in coaching or holding space for somebody, or holding up a mirror, but they have the perception that it's a window. And I believe that that person on our deathbed is the person, that reflection of our highest growth in our life. And they see that from the heart perspective, as you had talked about, like the heart centeredness, the structure within that. And within the speech I also wrote, whenever you feel lost, go look back in the window and
Mm.
you'll find your way again. So that structure you talked about, so simple. Just go back to that thing, and it stays very on point of what we talk about personal and professional. People get so lost out there, professional, make like do, as opposed to be with that personal life. And that's where home is within yourself. And if you can see that in the expression of our most intimate relationship, man, I'd say the best business decision ever made was my wife, because it's what keeps the soul grounded. So I love your responses, man. I should give you the overarching thing to all that. These 3 questions resonate because my father, when I was younger, he worked a lot, but every 4 to 6 weeks, whatever, when I would see him, he would take me out on a boys' night. Mind you, I still do a boys' night every Wednesday. So go figure, keep the play alive,
Mhm.
whatever.
Mhm.
We would go get a steak. We go get a
Mhm.
meal together. We would go catch a movie, and we would go to Sports Authority. They're not around, I don't think, anymore, but like we would go walk around, talk about sports. But kind of is my experience of like feeling love as I was growing up through that relationship there, and my fun way of sharing that with you. So thanks for going on that ride with me, brother.
Awesome. Awesome. All
Yeah,
good.
love that.
Appreciate it.
Hey, I appreciate you, man. This has been really fun. And with that, if somebody listened, they're like, if nothing else, I need some more of his metaphors. I might want to read his books, or I want to go. I need to work on some stuff internally, and he resonates with me. What's the best way for somebody to connect with you?
Probably the easiest way is straight through my website. It's drkenmartz.com. And you can have access there to my calendar to schedule time to connect with me directly. Uh, it'll connect also to my blog, to my books, to my whatever you need. And I love this work, and so always happy to share and support. So this is life work, and it all comes from the relationships. So glad to be here and glad to share.
Thank you so much. To close this one out, my friend, what are the final words of wisdom you'd like to leave our audience with today?
So although I start with emotions, they all happen in the context of relationships. So see who you can take a second. I often say, that there's research out there that people go to trainings and then they don't do anything with it. Actually take a moment to just right this second. If you're listening to my voice right now, take a second to decide what's one thing you learned today or in this conversation, and how am I going to apply that in my life? How am I going to make one change of one difference in my life today? Who am I going to give that gift to carry this forward? We've got great people we're talking to here, and great conversations that happen through the podcast. And how can I take this and carry it forward so that I'm making that snowball go to a slightly different direction and making that incremental change towards my growth? Because together we all get through it a little bit easier. And I appreciate it. A lot of gratitude.
Mic drop to close the thing out. Man, we had like 7 of those today. Those were really good. Ken, I'm really grateful that Rob has put this connection together. I'm grateful to have you in my life. I'm excited to see where this friendship grows into. Thank you so much for just sharing your insight today. I reiterate what you just said. Everybody, I'm sure everybody who's listening right now can remember a seminar, a conference, a whatever, a retreat they went away to, and they had I saw the light, and they went home and did nothing with it. Just like you said, put something into practice right away and share it. I love what you said there. You give that gift to somebody else. You learn a lot more when you have to teach somebody. So that was really cool. So everybody, go connect with Ken on the website. I will put that in the show notes. So just go click the link there. You can find it. This has been a blast, brother, and looking forward to many more great conversation. Everybody else listening, thank you so much for sharing your time and your energy with us today. And until next time, I remind you to love everybody.